This is Autoline After Hours, unscripted, uncensored, unapproved. Are you a podcast kind of person? Then look for Autoline After Hours, wherever you go for your favorite podcast.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
Hello, Gary.
John, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Well, it's only been a week. I mean, we were off 1 week for Thanksgiving. It seems like it's such a long time. Since,
isn't it grand? Wait till we get some time off for the holidays coming up.
Man, that's crazy.
Even better.
All right, so we got a big show here, but there's an important historical thing that happened today in 1913, or actually happened on December 1st, 1913, because it couldn't happen today. What might this be, and why am I bringing this up? Because it's so important to the industry.
December 13th, 1913. Okay, wild guess.
Or December 1st, I'm sorry, December 1st.
December 1st, 1913.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to guess that's when Ford started the moving assembly line, or tested it out at least.
You are a genius. They put the moving assembly line into production, Highland Park plant, Model T.
Now, was that actually putting it in production? Because I know they had done these experiments, and I think it was Charlie Sorensen that ran those, where they literally got a winch, put it at one end of the assembly area, and with a big long rope that they tied to the chassis of a Model T, and they had put people down the line with piles of parts next to them and started running this winch and with stopwatches. And, then they rebalanced it again. I mean, they did this several times, and then they settled on a speed, and I'm blanking out on what that speed is. But Gary, that's almost the exact same speed that assembly lines run today.
Amazing. But all right, get back to speed, get back to reality, get back to today.
Well, let's get our guests and
exactly right,
and our fellow journalists on board. We got Jim Morrison from Jeep. We got Roman Mica from TFL. Excuse me. Because I'm not seeing Roman. I'm just seeing a black square there. Okay.
So we'll start with
lost
Jim
him for the moment, but he'll be back. Jim, great having you back on Autoline After Hours.
Hey, John and Gary, great to be here, and a lot on the go, with us here at Jeep this year, and seen you guys a few times, during launch events and driving, new Jeeps and Wagoneers, and it's great to be back on your show. I think it's one of my favorites, so good to see you.
How's the year been for Jeep in North America, which you run? The chip shortage, all these disruptions and things like that. It's probably not the best of years, but I'm just curious how it's gone.
It's been busy for us too. A lot of launches. For us, introduced, brought, Grand Wagoneer back into the marketplace. We're launching electric Jeeps with our 4xe Wrangler and, Jeep Grand Cherokee. So a lot of product news, brought a new engine into play with the new Hurricane 510, on the Grand Wagoneer. Lots of product news, but lots of industrial things too. Call them headaches, call them, the new norm, or call them challenges. With all these chips. I mean, a year and a half ago, I didn't even know what a semiconductor was. Now I can tell you, where every Jeep that's got every one of them, and when the plants are going to run out, by the hour with these things coming. So it's been a new headache for us, but I think the Jeep team and our overall supply chain, with the new Stellantis, is really kind of up to the challenge, and with our global purchasing power, we've been able to do a lot to keep the plants running, but it'd be a lie if I said it hasn't been a complete pain in order to keep all that stuff going.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jim, I want to ask you about the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. In some ways, you guys were rolling the dice, and I'm just wondering, tell us about how this is all working out, and whether it's meeting your expectations, exceeding your expectations. What's the landscape for those two vehicles?
It's been fun for us, with kind of been 30 years since arguably we started that large SUV craze with the with the Grand Wagoneers of the past, and bringing luxury and technology into the marketplace, with Grand Wagoneer, 30 years ago. Now, kind of interesting is, luxury at the time was automatic transmissions, automatic hubs, and the technology at the time was breaking with the new CB radio, and so fast forward here, 30 years later, it's a little bit different, but the luxury is still key to what Grand Wagoneer is all about, and it's won some really nice quality awards on the interior. I would suggest it's got probably the nicest interior in the marketplace. Some would suggest, I'm just talking about large SUVs. I'll put it toe to toe with anything in the marketplace. I think the designers and the engineers have done a fantastic job, and of course it's won some some awards with that as well. And in fact, happy to report we just won the overall residual value award for Wagoneer as well. So it's getting noticed by the new people, or the automotive press in the marketplace. It's bringing new people into our market, and bringing new people into our showrooms, which is really good, because almost white space for us being out of the marketplace for 30 years. So we're conquesting a lot of those customers. I think annoying some of our competitors across town, but I think welcoming them into the Wagoneer is something that we're really happy to do. So overall, so far for this year, I think we're number 2 of the shorties. Not that you can call a Grand Wagoneer short, but we're going to introduce the long wheelbase here later this year, and ones that you got to drive here last month. But the overall with the shorties, we're number 2 of the OEMs. So going from 0 to number 2 is not bad. You guys know me, I don't like being number 2, so we got some work to do. But overall, it's been a good addition to the range. Not seeing a whole lot of substitution even within the showroom, because we really didn't have anything that big. So unfortunately, we had lost a lot of those customers that needed to tow 10,000 pounds of something, or space for all their hockey gear, the whole soccer team, whatever they want to throw in those things. But lots of place for people and stuff in the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, and that's bringing new customers to us. So it's been a good start, I would say.
I gotta believe they're almost all new, right? Because it's not just a matter of size; it's a matter of price. I mean, these things are over $100,000. Jeep
Yes.
has never been anywhere near to that. So I gotta believe those customers are totally new to the brand, or are you moving people up from the Grand Cherokee?
Some of them are. We've had some, Summit people and some Trackhawk people that were flirting with that, $100,000 range before, and certainly, even Wrangler territory. You take a $70,000 392 and start putting some mods on it, and you can get it to $100,000 with 37s and 2-inch lifts and new axles and all that kind of stuff. So that's not really completely new territory. But John, you're right. It's to have something stock out of the out of the showroom at $110,000, that is new territory for us. And we spent a lot of time training our dealers and getting Wagoneer certified dealers. So they're up to the challenge, because I would say, and we've said this to our dealers many times, it's half the customer experience and half the product. The product delivers, as we had talked about, and as you guys have testimented as you've driven them. But it's just part of it. These are very well-heeled customers that have got great earning power, and it's great to have those new people in our showroom. So majority of them are brand new for our showroom.
You talk about winning awards. Roman, welcome back. And it almost seems to me that in the interior of the Grand Wagoneer, it's so unexpected. I mean, you got to win an award from Architectural Digest or something. I mean, because it's like a sumptuous room rather than being what somebody might even imagine a Jeep being about.
The guys have done a fantastic job. I mean, it's the attention to detail, and we've always done really good materials, and whether it be the latest Grand Cherokee or even Ram pickup trucks, the interior team have really upped the ante for the Stellantis brands. But it's the attention to detail. It's the colors that match all the different pieces of it, and the details on how to put all of them together. The 75 inches of screen that have the TV that will talk to the passenger in the front, that will let the kids in the back play something different or a game, and all of that connects in a way that just makes you feel warm and comfortable, and we have a little bit of a different space, both philosophically and how we design these things, because people are having fun with these things. It's nothing to see a dirty dog in the back of a Grand Wagoneer, or kids that just jump in and, they got dirt in their cleats. Our customers don't tell them to get out and click off their cleats. We just say, hey, it's a really warm interior. Let's enjoy this thing. Let's enjoy it as part of, everyday experiences and put a smile on your face. But, thanks for noticing that, Gary, because I think, the team has worked really, really hard on that part of the Grand Wagoneer, and it's nice when it delivers.
Roman, you got a question for Jim?
No, I mean, I'm just amazed that these guys are going after like what used to be Range Rover territory. It's that sumptuous, I mean, you've got a car that once upon a time was, the American family truckster, and now it's become such a beautiful interior that I feel like I'm swathed in luxury.
Yeah, for sure, and it does it in a nice warm way too. And it's interesting, even going back to the 30 years ago, it was Land Rover and Grand Wagoneer that were kind of the only two in the marketplace that had luxury. And this is a fun fact for you is back in the 70s, the highest demographic income of any vehicle sold in America was Grand Wagoneer. And that's up against, Ferrari and Porsche and Range Rover even at the time. But it was that combination of luxury, technology, and the mindset of these are active people. My grandfather and his best friend would take their Grand Wagoneers fly fishing, and it was just those active vehicles that were connected with those customers that just made you smile.
But I do have a question, Jim. I guess I'm just a little confused about the three different models and how, consumers actually see them. So you've got Grand Cherokee L, Wagoneer, Wagoneer L, Grand Wagoneer L, right? That's, to me, feels like 6 different models that are kind of in the same space, at least from a consumer standpoint, when you go into Jeep dealerships. So how do you define them so that people feel like these are different offerings besides just different price points?
I think a lot of it comes down to me, Roman, on, the L's are always the long wheelbase version of it, right? So if you need to have, more space for your extra kids or your extra dogs or extra stuff, you need the L. And what's really interesting is, because we started that with Grand Cherokee, and we set some great records, with Grand Cherokee on the sales front this year as well, with new customers coming in that just needed a third row. They couldn't deal with just a 2-row Grand Cherokee, which had been a Grand Cherokee in a 2-row form, since the 90s. And I'm a great example. I have 3 kids. I stuffed them always into Grand Cherokees because we didn't have anything bigger. But people with 3 kids would, generally need 3 rows of vehicles. So that kind of is the evolution of Grand Cherokee, adding on the 3rd row, for those customers. And now we're doing the exact same thing for both Wagoneer, which is kind of the base trim of our new large SUV, and then Grand Wagoneer is the premium, high tech, high luxury variant of those. Those are the $110,000 rigs that John talked about, and then we have the long version of that as well. And what's really interesting, in the large segment, is those customers, the ones that have the long, can't live with a short. Not that you could call a Wagoneer short, because they need more space, and vice versa. So there really is, us listening to our customers and tapping into their exact needs. So that's really how we're handling those different vehicles, is just really tapping into our customers' different needs that we have both with Grand Cherokee and now with Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer.
Jim, how much bandwidth does the brand have? I mean, you're up to $110,000. There are others out there in the stratosphere, that are even more expensive. Not from the mass market brands. I'm thinking more like a Mercedes G-Wagon and things like that. But how much bandwidth do you have? Can you go above that?
That's a great question. And we pride ourselves with listening to customers, and we're listening to a new set of customers. And it's amazing because, before we had this artificial, ceiling of $100,000, and, hey, do you actually put even more leather or more real wood and real metal and, Macintosh sound systems? And, that's going to push us over the next stratosphere. And right now we have customers in the showroom that's saying, hey, what about this and what about that? So the answer to that question is I still don't know. I don't know if we'll have a whole lot of guts to go even more, but we're listening to our customers, and they're one of our fastest selling vehicles in the showroom right now is a Grand Wagoneer Series 3. That's the top end of the range, and we can't keep those in stock. So it's amazing with those customers just keep coming out of the woodwork, and it's great to see them.
What are those customers coming out of?
They're coming out of a lot of stuff from across town. Cadillacs and Lincolns, as well as coming out of Range Rovers and Lexus stuff too. So it's great to see those premium marks and talked about in our showroom and sitting on the used car lot.
Well, sort of in the context of the bandwidth, I've got to ask you this. So for the Gladiator, you guys came out with a new color, Earl.
Yes,
and
I wanted to call it Eeyore, but the guys they wanted to link it to T, and I'm like, what? Our Jeep customers don't care about T. What are you talking about? So,
and this is what I'm getting to. So the other ones are the other colors you have are High Velocity, Firecracker Red, Hydro Blue, Sarge Green. So those are all fun colors. They're things that like you can see people really getting engaged in it. But somebody who's buying a $110,000 vehicle is going to be very sophisticated and have a cup of Earl Grey tea.
Yes.
So how do you keep Jeepness?
Yes. The nice thing is there's everybody's got, and it had just happened, Gary, because you and I both, thought of it a little bit differently. But the nice thing is Jeep means something different to a lot of folks. And mostly what it means is the mindset of, freedom and adventure, right? That can apply to somebody that's sitting there with a cup of tea, or somebody that's, rocking their yellow Wrangler, and both fits, for the brand. It's, the freedom and adventure, is really, something that can apply to a lot of folks.
So let's talk about 4xe, your plug-in hybrids, because when you guys announced that you were coming out with a plug-in Wrangler, I thought, what are they thinking? I mean, in my impression, that customer is all about piston power and gasoline and all that. And then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You guys are hitting what, a 25 to 30% take rate on it? And I understand that the Grand Cherokee 4xe is also doing really well. What's going on there? I never anticipated this.
Well, and I think a lot of our competitors didn't see it coming either. We've gone from, no electrics in the range to actually being America's #1 selling, plug-in. And when you take a look at that, the rationale behind it, it took us a little bit longer because we pushed really hard because it needed to be a really good Jeep. And why it works really well is, customers have forever been searching for more four-wheel drive capability, more instant torque, more off-road credibility, and more off-road capability. And so that stuff is all natural. And when you take a look at what 4xe does for both Wrangler and Jeep Grand Cherokee, is it gives you all of that. I mean, 470 pound-feet of torque instantly like that, in a way that you have no more constraints with moving liquids around and all that kind of stuff. I mean, before 35 degrees was all that our engineers would say you could actually take a Wrangler up because they needed to move oil into the oil pan, out of the oil pan into the engine. I mean, a 4xe doesn't care anymore, right? It's all electric. It can go straight up. In fact, I've done it. It's, I've taken it right up to like 80 degrees. It's crazy what the thing will do. It scares the crap out of you, but it's no longer constrained. It's amazing how much torque, goes to the ground. And at us at Jeep, since 1941, we've just cared about putting four wheels, to the ground more efficiently with a four-wheel drive system better than anybody else. And what we found is the electrification and the 4xe technology that we've got is really just the natural next step of that for us. And the other thing that is really cool that some people talk about and experience with on-road, but it's even better off-road, is the quietness of it, right? So you put a vehicle into electric mode, and that's why we even have a button that you can save all of the battery power to the trail. So Roman could leave Colorado, drive all the way to Moab, and then hit and have still the same amount of battery power that when he left the driveway, and play around in Moab for a couple hours in all electric mode in complete quiet. And it's that combination of great capability and added performance that does it in complete quiet that really does add to what a Jeep is all about.
Roman, do you buy all that? You do a lot of off-roading. You think electric's the way to go?
Oh gosh, how deep do we want to get into the weeds? I think Jim is absolutely right. I think Jeep hit it right at the right time. Sometimes they say, the good joke, it's all about timing, right? And Jeep hit the timing right with their 4xEs, where people are looking to go electric, but they're not ready yet to go completely electric with all the issues that come along with that. So they've got this really great solution where, if, like, my wife, for instance, drives to work from Boulder to Denver, and her commute is about 30 miles. So potentially she could get a 4xE, drive it to work, plug it in, drive it home, and never use a drop of gasoline. And at the same time, if there's a snowstorm or something, she has the confidence of knowing that, she doesn't need to charge up or run out of juice, on the commute. And I think that's where they're at. But I want to ask Jim, is the future of Jeep electric?
We say, the 4xE is the next 4x4. And I think, as we keep moving, towards, more and more electrification, it's going to be a natural, next step. I think, we've got a couple of really good plugins, like you said, with Grand Cherokee and Wrangler. We've already showed the world what Recon looks like, which is, going to be our first all BEV electric, here for America, combined with the new to be named Wagoneer S, we call it the concept. Those two are coming, very quickly, and I think what we're going to see is, it's going to be a nice natural next step for 4x4 technology, and then I do think that 4xE is going to be the new 4x4.
All right. Well, can I just get into the weeds just for a second here? So, as you know, electric motors develop all of their torque not at 0, but at 1 pound of torque, right? And the problem you end up with when we've tested a lot of electric vehicles off-road. In fact, I think we've tested all of them. That includes Rivian, Hummer, right? Everything that's completely electric. And you end up with a situation when you're off-roading, there's no torque converter in the vehicle. And so unless you have the wheel spinning just a little bit, you can get into a situation where either you're floored and the Jeep won't go up, let's say it's a step, because this is common when you're off-roading, right? There's a step you have to go up. Or you've got so much torque that it just kind of bounds up the step.
Yes.
And that's even more terrifying. And so it seems like then the other problem that you end up with is you don't have traditional lockers like the Jeep has, like the Wrangler has, right? You're trying to use electronics to put power where there's grip. And with electric motors, that ends up sometimes creating this confusing situation where the computer kind of doesn't know where the grip is and kind of throws its hands up, and kind of, especially in the snow, this has happened to us. So have you guys addressed that from a technical standpoint? How do you get past kind of this limitation? And it's not a big limitation for on-road, but if you're off-roading, it is a real limitation that electric vehicles have.
It is, because there's a lot of torque, and the BEVs that we're looking at are going to have even again, a lot more torque than the 470 pound-feet. But I think a lot of the stuff that we're already, learning with, the way the power goes to the ground on our 4xEs is exactly the same stuff we need to manage it. And I would say we've been dealing with that for a while. And, I remember the conversation I had with Sergio when we added a turbo, to Wrangler. Was my biggest worry is that the turbo would spool up and jet me off of a cliff. And we needed to control all of that in a way that, wasn't just, locking it down with chassis electronics. It was actually, using the customer's foot to understand what they wanted to do in low range with 4 to 10, multipliers that really, add to that technology that you're talking about. Because I would say to you, that's the other piece of it, is I want to multiply all of that torque too, right? So it's going to be really able to manage all of that at the same time, and that's what's taking us a little bit longer, to be honest, because we needed to make it work really well as a Jeep.
But can you get around this with calibration? I mean, like with your piston powered, your ice powered Jeeps, you got snow mode, mud mode, blah blah blah.
Yes.
You just dial that in and it resets the response of the accelerator pedal, right? Can't you do that with electrics?
All of the inputs. The nice thing is, with the new brains that we have in these things, they are able to monitor a whole lot more. So Roman's right on. That's the trick, because you don't want to go from 0 to 1,000 pound-feet of torque, and snap a whole bunch of things as you're climbing up, a 10-inch rock, because it's got all the torque to do it. It's just managing all of that. So I would say we're in the stages now of driving all of our engineers crazy, but that's what we need to pull off.
Yeah, the other issue we found with the Hummer is it's with the spare tire, it's 9,500 pounds, which is a lot, and weight is the enemy of everything.
Off-roader,
right? Fuel economy, yeah. And so, is there a way? Have you guys thought about that? Because when you do go to, you've showed 2 prototype all-electric Wranglers now over the last 2 Jeep safaris. Is there a way to reduce the weight? Have you given that some thought so that it's nimble off-road as opposed to this? So what we had happen with the Hummer, for instance, is when you get steep enough and you're on loose enough dirt, you can have all 4 potentially wheels locked up, but because there's so much weight, all you're doing is spinning wheels, right?
Momentum still wins, yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to drive with momentum as opposed to with care. Are these issues that you guys are looking at for for the people who are serious off-roaders who are worried about this?
Yeah, that's for sure. Some of the stuff that is good to learn from from some of the other stuff that's being being addressed in the marketplace right now.
So Jim, you were mentioning that you've got some full BEVs coming. So today the order book's open for the Jeep Avenger in Europe.
Yes.
Why is the North American market not getting that vehicle?
I think a couple of things, and when you take a look at, and now the people have seen it in size. That was one of the everyone thought we were on glue here when they saw the cool pictures of the yellow one first, and hey, what are we doing? But then when they saw some of the specs and they saw how much smaller than it was even than a Renegade, and then you put that into how our government here measures the overall footprint of a vehicle to see where it fits into the GHG plan. It just doesn't really fit for what the Americans are looking for here yet. We're going to continue to watch, and we pride ourselves, like I said before, in being reactive to customers. So once customers see them and in the flesh and start driving them in Europe, if they say they still want them here, we'll take a look at it again. But overall, it's a pretty small Jeep. And looking at the marketplace here, America still wants bigger, cooler, stronger things, and until that changes, I think we'll keep watching. But I think it's going to be a really good global Jeep, but just not really dialed into what the Americans are looking for here at this stage.
Yeah. Hey, look, we got to take a commercial break here. Jim, if you can stay on, we'd love to have you for more of the show. Roman, we're getting a lot of static when you talk. I don't know, as we take the commercial break, if you can reboot or leave the studio, come back in, but I'd love to try to get your audio cleaned up a bit there. But in any case, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in just a moment to talk more about Jeep with Jim Morrison.
How do Bridgestone tires stop shorter on what roads? It's their HydroTrack technology. But you don't have to know how the science works, just where the brake is. What really matters is their Bridgestone.
The world is changing at an ever-increasing pace. No matter what the mode of transportation, there is always the need for an efficient propulsion system. And that's exactly what BorgWarner has been doing since the earliest days of the automotive industry.
All right, we're back talking all things Jeep with Jim Morrison. Jim, earlier Roman Mica was talking about going out to Moab. Here in the Detroit area, as you well know, there's an off-road park that opened up just outside metropolitan Detroit called Hollyoaks. I have been blown away at how popular that thing has become. And I'm just wondering, Roman, you were saying you could not believe how busy things were at Moab just a couple of weeks ago. Jim, talk about this a little bit. It seems like off-roading, was it COVID that kicked it off? But I've never seen it at this level of popularity.
Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. It's great to see. And I would say, some of our new competitors coming in and kind of chumming the waters on the segment as well has helped. people understand, the coolness of what it's like to have the freedom to go off road. And Roman and his TFL guys have done a great job over the years, propagating that, because you take a Jeep to top of mountains and see views and get to places where you can never get to. It's just incredible. And I think overall the push, we saw a big change through COVID, as the whole world wanted to get back outside and be free, and what better brand to capitalize on it than the Jeep brand that has been, really defining themselves with freedom and adventure back to 1941, and the original Willys that helped win a war. So I mean, what else is more freeing than getting in a Jeep and taking your family off road and going to a place that you can only see in a Jeep. And along the way, what we found is it's kind of really cool to figure out how to do it better than the other guy. So you start with a Jeep that's got 33s. The next time you show up, you got a Jeep with 35s. Next time you show up, you got a Jeep with 37s. The next thing you know, you got a 4xe that's cranking out 470 pound-feet of torque. And then after that, you got a 392 that's, that's cranking out V8 power, because, you just keep trying to do it different ways. And it's just infectious, and you talk to the community, and that is just, it's unbelievable what the Jeep community is all about. And what I love about it is, you have a guy, pulling up beside, the next guy, off-road, to do an event, and everybody watches everybody. And, somebody can be pulling up on a $110,000, fully lifted, brand new Wrangler Rubicon with $50,000 of mods. And they'll pull up right beside somebody that's driving a 15-year-old Cherokee 4-liter, and both people will probably have invested the same amount of their net worth into their cars, and everybody's, thinking that the Cherokee is just as cool as the Wrangler. Everybody's jumping underneath these things and looking to see, what they've done to modify it. They've probably both done it themselves in their garage, and that whole community spirit is just, it's unbelievable, but it's infectious. And once you have a few people that, say, hey, you wouldn't believe the number of pictures I get from Jeep customers that say, it's breathtaking. Look what I just saw for the first time in my Jeep. They've never, it's either a 10-hour hike, or they get there in their Jeep and they're just blown away by the freedom, the feeling that they have. And, that whole combination together is just, it's infectious, and more people are getting to do it. And it's great to see. I think, when I started doing this at Jeep, back in 2010, Moab would be really busy around Easter Jeep Safari. 20,000 people would come into Moab, for 2 or 3 weeks, kind of either side of Easter Jeep. And then, it started to get hot and whatever, it would just kind of cool down, and there wouldn't be a whole lot of activity. We'd go out there and do some engineering work, and it'd be easy to get hotels and, all that kind of stuff. But man, now it's, you're sometimes, 2 hours out of the city in order to get, a hotel. And we've had, Moab has grown, I think, 8-fold as far as the number of hotels and stuff. It's just, and it's busy all year round now. And it's just that whole connection with nature and freedom, I think, is just driving a lot of people, and they're enjoying their ways. The other piece of it is, through COVID, not a whole lot of people were traveling overseas. So, there's a little more money to be spent, here by traveling locally. A lot of people driving out of California and into Moab, and, from Colorado into Moab and different parts of Utah. So, that's happening, across the world. And we're seeing it with, with their Jeep Jamborees. That's happening all across America. People can't wait to get to a Jeep Jamboree. They're sold out in minutes, and, they're adding Jeep Jamborees and trying to, figure out different ways to see, really exclusive parts of America, not just Moab, but, that whole thing, that the phenomenon is really happening, and it's a lot of fun to be part of it.
So
Roman,
Jim, go ahead.
Okay. Roman, how do you explain this explosive popularity off-roading? Has it been something that's just been building, and now we've hit a critical mass? Is it these off-road parks that are near urban centers? Is it car companies doing, simulated off-roading at auto shows, with big ramps and things like that? Was it Cove? How do you explain it?
I hope my audio is better. So I rebooted the connection.
Your audio is really good now. Yes.
All right. It's that old, I hate to use this word, cliche, right? The perfect storm, where what you had was people with disposable income, with time on their hands because of COVID, with now this lust for life, right? Because of COVID reminded them that we are all mortal indeed, with hashtag van life, right? And then they've got this, we're so fortunate to live in this incredible country where we've got this incredible Western open BLM land where we can actually go off-roading. Because I go to Europe a lot, and there is so little off-roading in much of Germany and much of Central Europe. And I think the brands have just realized that, and they have capitalized on it, and people just enjoy America. It used to be called camping, right, John? Maybe when me and you were growing up. Now, of course, it's called overlanding because our kids don't want to do the same thing we did, but they're just doing it with a different name. And Jeep was at the forefront of that. Jim, what blew me away when you guys started selling 250,000 Wranglers annually, right? And I love the Wrangler. I love the Wrangler, but it is not a great car for on-road, right? It is so incredibly well engineered for off-roading. Yet it's kind of a brick into the wind, and yet 250,000 units. And that to me is mind-boggling. And I think it shows the strength of the brand and how you guys listen to your customers. Because can I ask you this, Jim? What percentage of your buyers, specifically Wrangler buyers, actually take it to Moab or to a Jamboree? How big is that percentage?
I answer that question with 100%. And then,
right.
Then I get looks like that. Most just do it in their mind. But I think, I would say that's, kind of the overall Jeep thing, but, Wrangler folks, certainly a lot more than that. So, Wrangler, overall, probably 15 or 20% of the Jeep brand customers, go, and everybody defines off-road, a little bit differently. Sometimes it's, a lawn is off-road. It is technically off-road, but, really, really hardcore is 10 or 15% of Grand Cherokees, probably, 25 or 30% of Wranglers. You get into Rubicons, and probably majority of Rubicons, spend some time off-road, not so many Saharas, not so many sports, but, it's the thought that you always can, right? And why we're so passionate about making the best four-wheel drives is because our customers expect to have the best four-wheel drive. So whether they get it because they want to dream about going to Moab someday, in their Wrangler, and then they're just, stuck doing normal day things with it, they can dream about it. And that's part of the fun, to be honest. Or they just want to have the best four-wheel drive, to keep their family safe. And that's really quite topical right now as we get into the snow season here. In a lot of America is thinking about how to keep their family safe. So it's great Grand Cherokee sales season for us right now because, people are thinking about how to keep their family safe. I mean, heck, we had New York with 4 feet of snow last week. So you can't do that in any other vehicle than a Jeep, right? So it's those customers that are really relying on having the best four-wheel drives. But, I think whether they do or whether they know they can, I think is equally important to me. But it's all the mindset about what we put into making the best four-wheel drives we can.
Jim, let me ask you about the market. I mean, so we've established that more people are interested in doing off-roading. So is the pie getting bigger or are the slices getting smaller?
The pie's getting bigger. Yeah. And that's, that's the beauty of competition is, the pie is getting bigger and more people are getting to experience what it's like. And that's great for the brand.
So what do you make of, Bronco and Volkswagen talking about bringing the Scout brand back? I mean, they're gunning right for Jeep.
Yeah, I think, the competitors in us, get angry and think, what are you doing? But then when you actually look at when you look at Wrangler, here this year, I mean, we set overall sales and share records. We got share records of the entire industry for North America that we've never seen before. So we, arguably having the best year with Wrangler, that we could, even with some challenges with chips and, keeping the plant running full throttle and all that kind of good stuff. So, we got a lot of sold orders and the guys in Toledo are working overtime to keep up. I need to say thanks to them. But, overall, competition's been good for this segment. You can make the argument that, hey, if, some people might be looking at a competitor's TV ad and they might think it's a Wrangler ad anyway. So, that kind of helps us. But when I look at the product, it's never been stronger, right? I mean, we've got a 4xe, we got an electric variant, we've got a 392, a V8 variant, we've got 35s from the factory. We've got the most capable, Wrangler that we've ever had. It's better on road than it has ever been, but it's also better off road, in line with what our customers expect from us. And that's all because the competition keeps us on our toes, which is really good. And I think, what's great is our customers are really the strength of the brand, and they will absolutely keep us on our toes. They have a lot of fun with competition too. Our community does. But at the end of the day, it's competition is always good for the marketplace.
So Jim, we just did a Wrangler buyer guide, and we noticed that the prices have gone up anywhere from $300, depending on the model, to maybe even $3,000. But I think on average, it was right around 10%. You would know that number much better than I would. Do you worry that we're getting to a point now, and it's not just Wrangler, right? It's everybody. Are you worried that we're getting to a point where these vehicles, especially the new vehicles, are becoming so expensive that if there is a weakening of the economy, you're going to be kind of out there way out on the limb with, back to the bad old days when dealers are having to discount them, and, when we're doing the guys, hey, come on over for the Jeepathon, right? I mean, we've had maybe 3 really good years of strong sales, but in America, that pendulum can swing quickly the other way. Do you worry about that? Does that keep you up at night?
Oh, for sure it does. And I think, right now our customers have really, they're in a really good shape because the residual value of their Jeeps has never been stronger. And, Wrangler specifically, it's insane, what these things are worth, in even as my son just got a 10th anniversary Rubicon, and, been searching for one forever, but you wouldn't believe what these things are worth, as 10-year-old cars. And our customers thankfully are seeing the benefit of that. So far they've been pretty well shielded, from that pricing with what's been going on in the marketplace, because whether it be a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old Grand Cherokee or a Cherokee or a Compass, the value of all those vehicles have gone up so much that they're actually able to trade and keep current and still actually lower their payments in a lot of cases, or keep the same payment. And a lot of folks are, going from a limited to an overland, for example, in the Grand Cherokee world right now, because, hey, they got all this value in their used vehicle that they're able to capitalize on that because the residual values are so high. But there's no doubt that there's going to be a time when all of that catches up, and we'll have to stay on top of that, Roman, because the times have been changing very quickly.
You guys recently announced that 23 will be the last available model year for the Eco Diesel in the Wrangler. Can you talk to us about, how did you guys come to that decision?
Well, it's actually our plant helped us and our customers did, right? Because what's interesting is, 420 pound-feet of torque was, I'm the guy that launched it and pushed really hard for diesels and Wranglers and Grand Cherokees, because it was the most torque we could put in a Jeep at the time. 420 pound-feet of torque. Well, now if you fast forward here to 2023, you got an Eco Diesel side by side with an electric Jeep that gets 470 pound-feet of torque. And you don't have to worry for the turbo boost to spool up on the diesel. It's already there for the Wrangler customer instantly with the instant torque delivery of the electric. So that was really what defined it. It was no longer the most capable Jeep. So we have a V8 and a 4xe. And the third powertrain in that plant, along with V6 and 2-liter, we were driving them a little bit crazy. So we needed to help simplify that down. And it was a lot higher take rate in the pickup truck in our Gladiators, because a lot of people modifying their Gladiators, they want the most torque possible in a Jeep to climb and to do off-road stuff. And so we're keeping it in the pickup truck, but now the most torque and the highest performance variant in a Wrangler is now the 4xe. So they've got that solution.
One of the reasons why Tesla has been so successful is it built out its own charging network. It's very reliable. Everybody seems more than happy with it. I wonder if there's a lesson to be learned in that for what you guys are doing. We talked about how crowded Moab's become, how popular Hollyoaks here in the Detroit area has become. Wouldn't it make sense for Jeep to go out and start building more of these off-road parks? Because I've been out to Hollyoaks. People flip out. They've never had that kind of off-road experience before. They've bought Jeeps and other, heavy-duty off-road vehicles, but it was more for image. And when they get the experience of what those vehicles can do, they totally flip out. And I'm wondering if maybe there isn't a business plan opportunity for Jeep to build more of these things. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. We have a lot of fun with Camp Jeep at the auto show because we do, get people to, get a chance to drive a Jeep. We call it in its natural environment, even though it's at an auto show, but it's, we had actually a 45-degree angle and, a 28-foot hill, that we had with our new,
and there was long lines to get into it.
2 hours. Sometimes people wait for 2 hours to go, in that. And then, but what's great about Hollyoaks, for example, it's actually 5 minutes for me that way, right? So I literally can be, doing chores around my farm here on a Sunday afternoon, and one of my sons will be like, "Hey, let's go wheeling," and we can be wheeling in 5 minutes. And you look at it, and there's like 250,000 Wranglers within an hour of Hollyoaks, right? So at any point in time within a weekend, before, if you were going to go wheeling and really enjoy a Jeep in its natural environment, you had to have a little bit of planning involved, right? It's probably drive up Saturday, wheel all Saturday afternoon, drive back Sunday, a little bit of planning, where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? Who are you going to bring? Next thing you know, you have 5 Jeeps, and it's a lot of fun. That still happens. But sometimes it's like, hey, I just got 2 hours. Oh crap, 2 hours. I can break a lot of things in 2 hours, test this and test that and have fun, pull out a few friends, talk to some customers, and then be right back for the barbecue, and that's what's great about Hollyoaks is it's perfectly positioned, within a big client base of Wrangler customers. And whether it's a quad or a motorbike, they all interact, really nicely together in that environment. The Hollyoaks folks have done a great job.
Imagine if there was a whole bunch more Hollyoaks
There
all
needs
over
to
the
be.
country.
I'm with you, John.
I
There
mean,
needs to
that
be.
would take this off-road segment for the industry, Jeep, Bronco, Scout, and just make the pie that much bigger, I think.
Yes, you're onto something for sure. There needs to be. I just convinced myself there needs to be. So maybe that's my night job.
Get out a shovel and start digging.
Yeah, exactly. I need a loader and away I go because I think Roman did a great job with his backyard. He started with a bulldozer and an excavator, and next thing you know, he's got his own off-road park. So Roman, maybe we just all go to your place.
Yeah, we just we built our own off-road testing area, and we just took a Jeep through it, and it was the only one that ever made it. It was lifted on 37s, but it was the only one that ever made it without getting stuck. I think we've taken 30 vehicles, and only 3 have not gotten stuck. And this Jeep that we just published a video actually made it without getting stuck and without ever stopping. So now I'm thinking we got to make it a lot harder.
But that's the beauty of it, is it too? As much as you hate to get stuck and you never get to see a Wrangler stuck. That's why every Wrangler that I ever get from the office always said they make sure it has a winch, because they know I'm crazy and go places that I probably shouldn't. But at least you can winch yourself out and you don't have to you don't have to get stuck. But it's addictive, and more people that we introduce to that, the better. I totally agree with you, John.
Can I ask you, how is, you guys are building out, this is a question following up on John's question. You guys are building up kind of your own charging network at trailheads. How's that going?
It's going a little bit slower than I expected, to be honest. The companies are so backlogged with some of that stuff. I expected to have a lot more in play right now, but we have one over here at Holly. You can plug in, you can go play in the trail for a couple hours, come shoot the breeze with some buddies. Plug it in, charge it back up, and then head back out, which is great. It's a big solar power charging station, so it uses, the natural environment to charge it. We've got a few out in Moab, and we're still working. I think we've got, installed in some of our other badge of honor trails as well. We're working to get those up. We've got a plan for 40 or 50 of them, that we're still working on. But it's good because you can go to the trail, top up, take off, and away you go.
So Jim, it sounds like your PHEV people really plug in, because that's been one of the concerns about plug-in hybrids, right? There was a study that came out last month that showed in Europe, for retail customers, less than half of them plug it in for their plug-in hybrid. And if it's a company car, it's like only 10% of the people plug in. But it sounds like in your 4xe cases, these people are really plugging them in.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because we do get the data, right? I can tell how many are plugged in this minute of every 4xe that we've sold, and they almost all do, right? And it's back to what I originally said was the success for 4xe is forever people have been adding more power to their Jeeps, and and adding quiet and more power at the same time. It's just a blast in this thing. I've got one in my driveway. And it's just a blast, because take the doors off, the top off, you rip around that thing in complete quiet, and it's as fast as any Wrangler you'd ever expect. It's fun. And then you go over to Hollyoaks. The guys they were there. The first 4xe off-roading was done right over there. I can they couldn't believe it. It was actually in a completely camoed Wrangler that they didn't even know was electric, and I had someone say, what the hell is that? It's not making any noise. And I was crawling up, one of the things over there on Mount Magna, and they couldn't believe it was going up it. And, they're like, but why isn't it making any noise? Next thing you know, I had 100 people all staring at it, and, the cat's out of the bag. But, the whole, concept is something that's really unique and fun, but it's not really new for Jeep people to be putting, more power to the ground for their Wranglers. So it's a natural fit for us.
So Jim, as I'm sure you know, next year is going to be the year of the mid-size truck, right? Potentially, we've got a new Ranger coming. We certainly have a new Tacoma coming, maybe in a year and a half. There's a new Colorado coming, which I think is actually going to be coming very soon in the next couple of months.
I saw one yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, what are you going to do with the Gladiator to kind of keep up with the Joneses, or the guys across the street from you guys?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. Next year is going to be a busy year for us with Wrangler and Gladiator. You might have, or you will see more out at Easter Jeep Safari kind of as we get a little bit closer to launching these things. But stay tuned. There's a lot of stuff coming, and the nice thing about those Wrangler and Gladiator folks is they're always telling us to do more and make it more capable and make it more fun. And I can guarantee you we'll make sure that we do that here for both those vehicles.
So Jim, talking about what's coming, tell us what you can about the Wagoneer S. I mean, how does this fit into the showroom?
Well, you almost think back of Grand Cherokee Trailhawk, Trackhawk, right? 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. 600 horsepower in this thing instant. It's going to be kind of in that performance realm, right? With what it does. Still don't know what name is going to be. In fact, we got approaching 100,000 names now to pick through. We thought it was going to be fun to let our community name the thing. I actually warned against it, because that's how we came up with the Altitude name. It's actually it's harder, because now we have 100,000 people expecting it to be their name.
Yeah, it's going to be like GP McJeepface.
So we're just in the middle of wading through all those names now, but it's we'll see what it's called, but that's going to be what's top of mind right now. But think of the luxury of the Grand Wagoneer that we have in the marketplace today with the interiors, blend it with kind of a Trackhawk Grand Cherokee like performance, 0 to 60 a little more on-road focused, and that's what we'll see here with the new Wagoneer S concept. It's a real car, it just needs a name now.
So, Roman, what do you think about what Jim said about off-roading electric? You deal with a lot of off-road people. Do they like it or not?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Here's the problem right now. Electric vehicles have become political, like everything else in this country. Yeah. So you've got half the country, that is excited and loves them, and you've got half the country that you'll take my Hemi out of my cold dead hands, right? And so we're only at like 10%, less than 10% adoption right now with electric vehicles. So Jim, I think Jeep has another 40% that's going to be easy, but then the next 50% is going to be much harder. But here's the thing: when people actually get and drive one, right, and you hear the birds and you hear the water rustling, and you experience off-road the way that off-road should be experienced. And there's a group of people out there who want to hear, the big Hemi roar, but when you actually are out there more in tune with nature as opposed to tuning nature, then it's a really different experience. And you've got instant torque, which for the most part is grand. You've got incredible silence, and you've got kind of this. It's more. But it's really a question about getting people behind the wheel of them. Once people get behind the wheel of an electric vehicle, be it a Jeep or any other one, then all of a sudden they start to see the advantages, right? Most people, I think, who have never driven one and are very much against them, it's not done because of experience. It's done because of emotion. But once you do it, it's magical in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Do you guys find any issue in terms of since EVs tend to be heavier than ICE versions, that there's some concern about that when it comes to off-roading?
Well, Rivian did away with the tank turn. That's good. that was not only dangerous, but I think also tore up. I mean, from an off-roading perspective, heaviness is bad because it does tear up the land more, and you've got more people out there with heavier vehicles. So weight is always an issue. But we haven't gotten there yet. People are worried about the infrastructure and about having enough charging. We haven't gotten there yet. We're still in, we're like the Model T days right now. And so I think all these things, it'll be like, like storage on a computer, right? Remember 20 years ago, I remember when I bought my first Mac, it was 128, then it went to 512, a fat Mac, and I thought that was huge. Now, my watch, probably my new Apple Watch, thank you, honey, my birthday has probably more memory than a supercomputer from 10 years ago. So I think these will be things that Jim and his engineers will sort out. I know that these guys, they're working on it, and this is stuff we'll figure out.
Well, everybody's fixated on the Hummer because it's so bloody heavy, but, going forward, I'm not talking next year, but, in the next decade or two, these things are going to get lighter. Energy density is going to get far better in the batteries. You're going to be able to use smaller batteries, blah, 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 blah.
Chemistry's changing, all the rest of it. Yeah.
This is going to get resolved. We're still so early in the electric move.
Yeah. Because I need to go at 4. So I don't know if you got one more question for me, but I don't mean to end on a fast note, but I have 3 minutes until I got about 100 people waiting for me on the other line.
No, let's wrap it up. Let's let you get back to running Jeep, and we'll just give you our thanks for devoting this much time to us. It's been terrific.
Hey, I've said this a lot, and Roman knows I listen and watch his stuff all the time. But I started Saturday mornings with Autoline Detroit, a long time ago, and that's where I still get a lot of my information about what's really happening in the automotive world. So I appreciate what you and Gary and your son are doing in this market here in Detroit, and keeping the focus on Detroit, because people need to know that Detroit is really moving the needle for us, and it's really the heartbeat of the automotive world, and I really thank you for what you guys do every day. So thanks for having me on, and I look forward to doing it again.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Roman,
Jim.
thank you too. Good
Roman,
having you on the show again.
Ciao. Thank you, guys.
Look
Stay
good.
well.
See you next week, Gary.
Okay, we'll see you.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, solutions for your journey, and by Borg Warner, propulsion solutions that support a clean, energy-efficient world.
If you like this program and would like to learn more about the automotive industry, check out our website at autoline.tv or look for us on YouTube on the Autoline channel.